Every time tensions rise around Iran, the world starts talking about one place again: the Strait of Hormuz. It is a narrow stretch of water, but its importance to the global economy is enormous. The strait lies between Iran and Oman, and at its narrowest point, it is only about 33 kilometers wide. Yet, through this small passage flows one of the most vital energy routes on Earth. Every day, tens of millions of barrels of oil move through the Strait of Hormuz. It is not only crude oil that depends on this waterway. Liquefied natural gas also passes through here, especially from Qatar, one of the world's biggest LNG exporters. For Qatar in particular, this route is absolutely essential because most of its liquefied natural gas shipments must travel through the strait before reaching international markets. That is why, for decades, strategists, engineers, and governments have all asked the same question: is there a way to bypass the Strait of Hormuz? Could another route be created, perhaps a canal, a pipeline system, or some massive new transport corridor so that oil and gas exporters would no longer be so dependent on this narrow and vulnerable waterway? The idea is not new. Since the 1970s, especially during the oil crises of that era, energy planners began to worry about the risks of relying so heavily on one single choke point. If so much of the world's energy supply depends on one strait, then any military tension, blockade, or shipping accident could send shockwaves across the global economy. Oil prices could surge, supply chains could be disrupted, and entire countries could feel the impact within days. One of the boldest ideas ever imagined was to dig a canal across the Arabian Peninsula, connecting the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea, or the Gulf of Oman. On paper, the concept sounds almost like another Suez Canal or Panama Canal. But once you look at the map more carefully, the scale of the challenge becomes extraordinary. To bypass the Strait of Hormuz, such a canal would need to cut through desert, rocky plateaus, and in some places, mountain ranges. Depending on the exact route chosen, the canal could be roughly 900 to 1,000 kilometers long. That is an astonishing number. To understand how large that is, it helps to compare it with some of the most famous canals ever built. The Suez Canal in Egypt, one of the greatest infrastructure projects of the 19th century, is only a little over 190 kilometers long. The Panama Canal, which completely transformed global shipping between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, is even shorter, at roughly 80 kilometers. In other words, a canal designed to bypass Hormuz could be 5 to 10 times longer than the engineering marvels people usually think of when they hear the word canal. And length is only the beginning of the problem. This canal would also need to be wide and deep enough to handle some of the largest oil tankers in the world. These supertankers are true giants of global trade. Many of them are over 330 meters long, around the length of 3 football fields placed end to end. Some are more than 60 meters wide, and when fully loaded, a single vessel can carry around 2 million barrels of crude oil. For ships like these to pass safely, the canal would likely need a depth of around 30 meters. If it were too shallow, the bottom of a fully loaded tanker could strike the canal bed. The canal would also need to be wide enough for navigation, maneuvering, and emergency operations. In busy sections, the surface width might need to reach 200 to 400 meters, or even more in certain areas. Now, imagine multiplying those dimensions across nearly 1,000 kilometers of land. The amount of earth and rock that would need to be excavated is almost hard to comprehend. Engineers would not just be digging a ditch, they would be removing tens of billions of cubic meters of material, stabilizing canal banks, preventing landslides, building control stations, creating service ports, and maintaining navigation systems across one of the harshest environments on the planet. And that environment matters a lot. Much of the Arabian Peninsula is not easy terrain. This is not like digging through a relatively flat desert corridor in Egypt. In parts of Oman, for example, mountain ranges rise more than 3,000 meters high. In other areas, the land is dry, rocky, and extremely difficult to work with. Summer temperatures can reach 45 to 50 degrees Celsius. Dust, heat, and water scarcity would make construction and long-term operation much harder than similar projects in milder climates. Water itself is another major issue. Canals are not just empty trenches. They need water management systems, and in many cases, enormous volumes of water are required to maintain stable conditions and safe passage. Yet this region is one of the driest in the world. That means any canal project would face a serious environmental and logistical challenge from the very beginning. Then comes the question of cost. Even the expansion of existing canals has been incredibly expensive. The Panama Canal expansion cost billions of dollars. The Suez Canal expansion also required enormous investment. But those were much shorter projects, and they mostly involved upgrading routes that already existed. A completely new canal stretching close to 1,000 kilometers across the Arabian Peninsula would be on an entirely different level. Some estimates suggest that such a project could cost hundreds of billions of dollars. In the most extreme scenarios, the figure could even move toward $500 billion or beyond. And that would only cover construction. It would not include the long-term costs of maintenance, operations, security, staffing, repairs, and political risk management over many decades. That is one reason why countries in the region have generally chosen a far more practical alternative: pipelines. Pipelines may not be as dramatic as a giant sea canal, but they are much cheaper, faster to build, and easier to protect. Saudi Arabia, for example, has developed east-west pipeline systems that allow some of its oil to move from Gulf production areas to ports on the Red Sea. This means that even if the Strait of Hormuz were disrupted, part of Saudi oil exports could still reach world markets without passing through that choke point. The United Arab Emirates has also built its own bypass route. The Abu Dhabi crude oil pipeline carries oil from inland fields to the port of Fujairah on the Gulf of Oman, outside the Strait of Hormuz. This allows a portion of Emirati exports to avoid the strait entirely. These pipeline systems are important, but they do not solve the whole problem. They can reduce dependence on Hormuz, but they cannot fully replace it. The scale of oil and gas flows through the strait remains far greater than what current bypass infrastructure can handle. A large share of the world's energy trade still depends on those narrow waters. There have also been smaller regional canal ideas over the years. Some proposals attracted headlines because of their strategic significance, but none came close to truly replacing Hormuz as a global energy corridor. In reality, most of these plans remained political statements, engineering fantasies, or limited regional concepts rather than practical alternatives. So, after decades of discussion, the basic reality has not changed. The Strait of Hormuz is still one of the most important shipping routes on Earth. It remains the main artery through which a huge share of global oil exports and liquefied natural gas supplies must pass. Could that change in the future? Possibly. Construction technology continues to improve. Wealthy states in the Middle East have shown that they are willing to spend vast sums on megaprojects. It is not impossible that one day an enormous transport corridor, perhaps even a true sea canal, could be built to reshape the region's energy geography. But as of today, that remains a vision on paper, not a reality on the ground. The terrain is too difficult, the costs are too high, the politics are too complicated. Those three factors together have kept the dream of a Hormuz bypass canal from becoming real. And that is why, for the foreseeable future, the Strait of Hormuz will continue to play an irreplaceable role in the global energy system. It is a narrow waterway only a few dozen kilometers wide, yet it functions like one of the planet's main energy arteries. That is why every military standoff, every tanker incident, and every sign of instability in this region immediately captures the attention of the world. Because when something happens in the Strait of Hormuz, the consequences do not stay there. They ripple outward across markets, governments, and households everywhere. And that is what makes this strait so extraordinary. Small on the map, but immense in global importance.